Game publishers have discovered the perfect business model: make convenience irresistible, remove alternatives, then act confused when customers ask who controls the deal afterward. Sony has confirmed that physical disc production for new PlayStation releases ends in January 2028, and that matters beyond losing another plastic box. Suddenly, the PlayStation market, where you can buy cheaper, lend freely, resell later, or walk into another shop, gets an expiry date. Worse, the easiest way to step outside Sony's digital ecosystem, after you have paid, starts disappearing with it. Meanwhile, a Dutch consumer group is fighting Sony over digital PlayStation pricing and distribution, while Stop Killing Games and Does It Play back that campaign. Here is the question underneath all the corporate vocabulary: if digital already won because players prefer it, why does physical still need to die? Naturally, Sony has an answer, and annoyingly, part of it makes sense. Reuters reported that digital downloads represented about 80% of Sony's full game software sales in fiscal 2025, so customers are already choosing digital. Plenty of players like instant downloads, preloads, cleaner shelves, and never finding a game disc used as a coaster. Conveniently, Sony also says retailers will continue selling new PlayStation releases digitally after the physical cutoff, meaning the honest argument is not that every shop vanishes. Instead, the real question is whether those digital retailers can replace the pressure created by physical stock, used copies, clearance sales, lending, trade-ins, and resale. Consider Dave, our fictional customer, who has $70 and the optimism to believe launch patches are optional. Today, Dave buys a physical game for $70, finishes it, sells it for $40, and effectively spends $30 if the market cooperates. Someone else buys Dave's copy for less, another retailer discounts new stock to compete, and Sony does not control every step of that chain. Nobody needs a conspiracy board to understand why this matters. Physical media creates transactions outside the platform holder's direct storefront. More importantly, Dave can walk away, sell what he bought, and recover money. So, before Dave loses another financial instrument disguised as a plastic circle, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and support this corner of YouTube. Clicking those buttons costs less than a deluxe edition, contains no battle pass, and needs no account-linked license. Blame the algorithm for the interruption, because apparently, even complaining about giant corporations must first impress another giant corporation. Back to the mess, because one correction needs to survive the thumbnail before we go any further. Fair PlayStation did not appear this week, and Stop Killing Games did not suddenly sue Sony. Stichting Massaschade and Consument filed the Dutch action in June 2025, while Stop Killing Games and Does It Play backed it in August 2026. Crucially, no Dutch court has ruled that Sony illegally operates a monopoly, no judge has proven the campaign's 47% figure, and no damages award exists. Right, paperwork finished, now we can return to why anyone with a PlayStation and a wallet should care. According to the Dutch Foundation, commissioned economic research found digital PlayStation games could cost as much as 47% more than comparable physical versions, while the group seeks hundreds of millions. Obviously that number comes from Sony's opponent, not from a judge carrying tablets marked official Sony tax. Nevertheless, the allegation lands because boxed games can collapse in price, while a digital storefront can keep staring at launch pricing like nothing happened. Imagine Dave again, because Dave remembers what money is for. Yesterday, he could buy a disc, finish it, sell it, and recover part of the cost. Tomorrow, with an ordinary digital purchase, he can finish the game and retain the magnificent privilege of seeing its icon forever. Better yet, a used copy gives another player a cheaper entry point, without requiring another publisher sale. Strangely, marketing departments rarely print zero resale value beside the glowing Buy Now button. PlayStation's terms describe store purchases as licenses for personal use and generally restrict transfer, unless applicable law says otherwise. Legally, buying a disc does not mean Dave owns the copyright, source code, soundtrack, character models, or exhausted programmer named Kevin. Practically, however, he possesses an object he can usually hand to Steve, without asking a server whether Kevin approves. Digitally, purchases depend on accounts, platform rules, licensing terms, and systems whose definition of permanence can become surprisingly flexible. Somehow, buy now arrives with enough legal furniture to fill an apartment. Then comes the trick. Convenience gets promoted into consumer power. Yet, convenience answers how easily Dave receives something, while leverage answers what Dave can do after paying. Therein lies the uncomfortable part. An unpopular format can still perform a competitive function that dies with it. Now, this is the point where Sony's own defense accidentally makes the criticism worse. Already, digital dominates PlayStation full game sales, without Sony needing to eliminate new discs. Therefore, if roughly 8 customers out of 10 already choose digital, Why does the remaining physical alternative need a corporate death certificate? Surely, the better option could keep winning, while the minority keeps its resellable alternative. Curiously, Sony's strongest evidence for digital also proves physical did not need removing. That is where changing habits become a story about disappearing choices. Importantly, none of this proves executives are secretly cackling over burning Blu-rays. Companies simplify distribution because manufacturing, inventory, shipping, and retailers cost money. Reasonably, Sony can say following customer behavior makes sense. However, customers can also notice that the same decision lowers distribution friction for Sony, while weakening resale, physical competition, and transactions outside Sony's systems. Funny how efficiency often arrives with savings for the company and a motivational speech for the customer. Following January 2028, Sony says new games will remain available digitally through retailers, as well as through the PlayStation Store. Questions remain about discounts, code restrictions, and whether anything resembling resale survives after redemption. Until those details become clear, several shops might compete, or merely offer the freedom to choose who hands Dave the same lock key. Either way, a code sold at 3 tills is not a disc that can circulate for years. Used games expose the bigger problem after the first transaction. Publishers dislike second-hand sales for an obvious reason: money can change hands, without creating another sale for the publisher or platform holder. Consumers tend to call this less revenue leakage, and more what owning stuff has done since forever. Trade-ins finance new games, used copies lower prices, and lending lets friends try something, without a subscription committee. Removing new discs does not erase existing PlayStation copies in January 2028, but future releases stop feeding new stock into that market. Gradually, Dave's exit door gets smaller, while everybody congratulates him on how clean the hallway looks. Preservation adds another layer. Stop Killing Games became prominent by challenging situations where purchased games become unusable after required services shut down, which is not the same legal issue as Fair PlayStation's pricing case. Their involvement does not prove the Dutch allegations, but it links this fight to a broader concern about control and long-term access. Once purchases depend on accounts, servers, storefronts, licenses, and seller-controlled infrastructure, customers naturally ask what remains theirs when support changes. Poor Dave is beginning to suspect that ownership now requires a terms of service archaeology degree. Still, accusing Sony of personally choosing every third-party game price would be nonsense. Studios participate in pricing, PlayStation runs promotions, commercial agreements vary, and future retailer arrangements could create genuine competition. Structurally though, Sony controls the PlayStation platform, operates its primary digital storefront, and establishes platform rules, and decides which distribution methods function inside that environment. Whether those facts become unlawful conduct is for courts to decide, not a YouTuber armed with sarcasm and a thumbnail featuring a burning DualSense. Frankly, the real facts are interesting enough, without giving them a fake mustache. Critically, the Dutch case has not reached a final answer. June's hearing dealt with preliminary matters, such as jurisdiction, applicable law, and whether the Foundation's case can proceed, rather than delivering the Internet's preferred verdict of corporation guilty, begin content farming. Accuracy may ruin a perfectly good tantrum, but it stops Sony's defenders from dismissing everything, because one sentence got drunk and wandered into fantasy. Oddly, Sony deserves some credit for announcing the physical cutoff well in advance. Likewise, keeping retailers involved in digital sales at least acknowledges that consumer choice cannot sensibly mean one storefront forever. Unfortunately, a digital code is not automatically equivalent to a disc that can be lent, traded, resold, discounted as stock, or discovered 10 years later beside 6 unwanted football games. Maybe Sony's future retail system will create aggressive price competition, durable access, and better consumer options. If so excellent, Dave can stop glaring at his television and return to complaining about frame rates like nature intended. Ultimately, this story is not about worshipping plastic circles. Seriously, nobody needs a candlelit shrine, where collectors kneel before a sealed launch copy and whisper patch notes into the darkness. What matters is leverage, because physical media creates competing sellers, used prices, resale value, lending, transferable objects, and transactions beyond one platform storefront. Afterward, some of those forces disappear, unless the replacement system genuinely recreates them. Predictably, corporate language will call the transition efficient, modern, convenient, cleaner, and aligned with consumer demand. Missing from that vocabulary is a satisfying answer to one question: what concrete consumer power replaces the power being removed? Provided the answer is strong retail competition, flexible pricing, durable access, better refunds, and meaningful transfer options, Sony has a stronger case. Should the answer merely be that most customers already chose digital, Then Sony has explained why digital succeeds, not why physical must die. Apparently, the future is so obviously superior that the old option still needs to be taken outside and quietly dealt with. Somewhere, Dave is still holding his $70 and wondering why everything keeps becoming more convenient, while every road back out gets narrower. Finally, January 2028 does not destroy every PlayStation disc sitting on a shelf, nor does it erase games scheduled for physical release before the cutoff. Specifically, the policy stops new releases from creating fresh physical stock, gradually removing the easiest PlayStation purchase that can circulate beyond one account. Fundamentally, Sony is not merely retiring a format. Helpfully for Sony, one of the consumer's simplest exit routes retires with it. Remember Dave at the start, buying a game, finishing it, and selling it on. After this transition, he still gets the game, he still gets the convenience, and he still gets the $70 charge. Only the exit route is missing. And if digital truly won because it is better, easier, and preferred by most players, somebody should explain why that door still needs locking behind us.